A homeless man sits alone on a bench, clutching a worn journal. Most pass by without noticing him. Some throw disgusted glances. None see the faded rectangle on his jacket where a military patch once sat. None know what Operation Lighthouse was, or why this man still carries the weight of it 15 years later. That's about to change. Because when a TikToker decides this quiet veteran is perfect fodder for content, he has no idea who's watching from the cafe across the street. Some acts of disrespect demand justice. Some heroes never stop serving, even when the uniform is long gone. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story speaks to you, consider subscribing. Every day, thousands of veterans become invisible among us. Morning light filters through the smog of downtown Los Angeles, casting long shadows across Pershing Square. The early hours bring a strange mix of people. Office workers clutching coffee cups, the homeless emerging from makeshift shelters, and today, a young man setting up a tripod with practiced efficiency. Ezekiel Zek Rivers adjusts his phone camera angle, designer sunglasses perched on his carefully styled hair. At 24, he's built a social media empire on the simple formula of public humiliation. His expensive streetwear, limited edition Nikes, distressed jeans worth more than a month's rent for most, forms a stark contrast to the urban grit surrounding him. 2 million views yesterday, he announces to his entourage, not bothering to look up from his screen. The algorithm loves public reactions. Phoenix, a lanky 22-year-old with blue hair and a permanent smirk, scrolls through comments on his own phone. Comment section is fire. Half of them think you're Satan. Half think that waitress deserved it for being slow. Controversy equals cash, Octavia adds, her manicured nails tapping against her phone screen as she coordinates their posting schedule. At 23, she handles the business end of Zek's growing brand. But we need something special to hit 3 mil today. Zek surveys the park like a predator seeking prey. His eyes narrow behind designer frames, scanning for potential subjects. His criteria are simple: people who can't fight back, who provide maximum reaction for minimum risk. Across the square, sitting on a bench weathered by years of sun and rain, Malcolm Thorne watches pigeons peck at scattered breadcrumbs. At 68, his body bears the invisible scars of battles fought long ago in distant lands. His olive jacket hangs loose on his frame, a discolored rectangle visible where a military patch once proudly sat. Most mornings follow the same quiet rhythm for Thorne. He arrives as the park opens, claims his bench, and observes the world with patient attention. His possessions are few: a worn leather journal and a thermos of black coffee. To passersby, he's just another homeless veteran, invisible against the urban landscape. But not everyone overlooks him. At a nearby cafe table, a man in a baseball cap and sunglasses slowly stirs his coffee, occasionally glancing toward Thorne's bench. This is Curtis Bell, 67, dressed in unassuming clothes that belie his significance. Something about the veteran has caught his attention 3 mornings in a row. Thorne opens his journal, uncapping a ballpoint pen with deliberate care. His handwriting is precise despite slightly trembling fingers. Military neat, each letter formed with discipline that survived decades of civilian life. He writes a single line: Day 312, still searching for Emerson's son. The page contains other similar entries, counting days like prisoners mark walls. Alongside the text are newspaper clippings, carefully preserved despite their yellowing edges. Curtis watches this ritual with quiet intensity, too far to read the words, but close enough to note the care with which Thorne handles the journal. Zek's voice cuts through the morning calm. Perfect. Homeless vet. Comment section loves military stuff. Half will be outraged, half will defend. Engagement through the roof. Phoenix follows his gaze to Thorne. Old school too. Vietnam era. Who cares? Just get the lighting right, Zek responds, already mentally composing clickbait titles. Make sure you get his face when I start. The trio approaches Thorne, phones recording from multiple angles. Zek adopts a different persona now, voice softened, expression arranged into a mask of concerned citizenship. Excuse me, sir, mind if we ask you a few questions for our documentary about veterans? Thorne looks up briefly, eyes assessing the 3 young people with cameras pointed at him. His expression reveals nothing, but he closes his journal carefully. Depends on the questions, he replies, voice gravelly from years of disuse. Zek begins with seemingly respectful inquiries about military service, performing compassion with the skill of someone who has monetized false empathy. Thank you for your service. Which war did you serve in? Afghanistan, 2008. Special Forces, Thorne responds, his gaze now fixed on a point beyond Zek, as if looking through him. That's all that matters. Zek glances at his companions, silently communicating that they need more reaction. Must have been rough over there. How many tours? 3. And now you're here. The system failed you, huh? Government sent you to fight their war, then abandoned you? Thorne's eyes finally meet Zek's, sharp with intelligence that contradicts his disheveled appearance. I'm where I need to be. At the cafe, Curtis Bell leans forward slightly, straining to hear the conversation. His coffee sits forgotten, going cold beside an unopened book. Zek, frustrated by Thorne's minimal responses, changes tactics. He pulls out a $20 bill, waving it performatively. You seem down on your luck, sir. Would you rather have this $20 or earn it by letting me shave half your beard for my followers? The question hangs in the air. Several passers-by slow their pace, some raising phones to capture what might become a viral moment. Thorne declines quietly. Some things aren't for sale, son. The sun lands like a gentle rebuke, causing Phoenix to snicker behind his camera. Zek's friendly facade slips momentarily, irritation flashing across his features, before he reassembles his charitable expression. Just trying to help, sir. My followers often donate to causes I highlight. We could set up a fundraiser for you. I don't need help. Thorne reopens his journal, a clear dismissal. Curtis closes his book, suddenly more attentive to the escalating interaction. His posture has changed, body angling toward the scene unfolding across the square. Zek's questions grow increasingly disrespectful, designed to provoke rather than understand. Did you even really serve, or is that jacket from a thrift store? My viewers want to know. Thorne continues writing, ignoring the bait. The page shows a meticulous list of names and locations, organized like a military operation plan. Frustrated by Thorne's dignified non-engagement, Zek escalates, knocking the journal from his hands with a casual swipe. Oops, my bad. Pages scatter across the pavement, revealing newspaper clippings about a decorated unit. Headlines mention Operation Lighthouse and a classified rescue mission. Photos of soldiers standing before helicopters, faces young and serious beneath desert sun. Curtis visibly reacts to this, straightening in his chair. One hand moves to his sunglasses, almost removing them before he catches himself. A small crowd begins to form, drawn by the commotion and Zek's performative voice. Most have phones raised, recording rather than helping, as Thorne kneels to gather his scattered memories. Maybe you're just another fake vet begging for handouts, Zek announces loudly, playing to his growing audience. Prove you served. Do something military. Thorne continues collecting his papers, movements methodical despite the public humiliation. His hands remain steady, a soldier's discipline evident in his restraint. Curtis stands now, leaving money on the cafe table. His movement is unhurried but purposeful, eyes never leaving the unfolding scene. A breeze catches one of Thorne's papers, carrying it toward Curtis's feet. He bends to retrieve it, a photograph showing a younger Thorne in uniform, standing beside other soldiers and what appears to be Curtis himself in military fatigues. Their arms are around each other's shoulders, desert mountains rising behind them. Curtis stares at the image for a long moment before carefully folding it and continuing his approach. Zek, emboldened by the crowd's attention and Thorne's continued silence, delivers his performance's climax. My followers are saying you're disrespecting real veterans by pretending. If you served, why can't you afford a place to live? When Thorne remains silent, focused on preserving his scattered history, Zek delivers a shove to his shoulder. The old man stumbles but catches himself with surprising agility. The crowd murmurs, some uncomfortable with the escalation, but none intervening. Cameras continue recording, spectators becoming digital accomplices. That's how it works, folks, Zek narrates to his invisible audience. Ask for honesty, get hostility. Typical homeless behavior. Thorne rises to his feet, journal clutched protectively against his chest. His eyes meet Zek's with a calm intensity that momentarily unsettles the younger man. You want a response? Here it is. I've been shot at by better men than you. The simple statement, delivered without heat or theatrics, causes Phoenix to lower his phone slightly. Even Octavia shifts uncomfortably. Zek, however, recognizes only that his target has finally engaged, perfect for metrics, for shares, for the algorithm that rewards emotional escalation. Fighting words from a guy who can't even fight for a shower, Zek taunts. My viewers are saying you're stolen valor, wearing a jacket you bought at Goodwill. Curtis moves closer now, weaving through onlookers with quiet determination. He's 30 feet away, then 20, his presence still unremarkable among the gathered spectators. Thorne stands his ground, neither advancing nor retreating. You should leave now. Or what? You'll call in an airstrike? Zek laughs, gesturing for Phoenix to get a better angle. Maybe show us one of those classified moves they taught you in Special Forces? The mockery in his voice is unmistakable. Military service reduced to a punchline for content creation. Several observers exchange uncomfortable glances, but social media's gravitational pull keeps them watching, recording, participating in the spectacle. I don't need to prove anything to you, Thorne responds, voice level. Especially not for entertainment. That's what I thought, Zek says triumphantly, turning to address his viewers directly. Another fake looking for handouts. Let's see how he handles some real pressure. With theatrical timing, he reaches toward Thorne's journal. Let's see what other fairy tales you've gotten here, Sergeant. Thorne steps back, clutching the journal tighter. That's private property. Like your imaginary medals? Zek persists, advancing. Come on, show us what a real hero looks like. Stand at attention, salute the flag, something. Curtis is 15 feet away now, close enough to hear every word. His pace quickens slightly. Respect yourself enough to walk away, Thorne advises, a hint of genuine concern in his voice. This path you're on leads nowhere good. The sincerity only fuels Zek's performance. Life advice from a sidewalk philosopher. Viewers, should I take career guidance from someone who sleeps on benches? He turns back to Thorne, voice hardening. No one respects stolen valor. Either prove you served or admit you're wearing that jacket for sympathy. Thorne looks past Zek, seeming to notice Curtis for the first time. Something passes between the two older men. Recognition, perhaps, or simply acknowledgement of shared understanding. Last warning, Thorne says quietly. Walk away. Zek, sensing the moment slipping from his control, decides on a final escalation. Or this happens. The slap lands with a sharp crack that silences the murmuring crowd. Thorne's head snaps sideways from the impact, a red mark blooming on his weathered cheek. That's what happens when you disrespect Zek Nation, Zek announces to his audience, drawing out the moment for maximum engagement. Before he can land another blow, a hand grips his wrist with surprising strength. Curtis stands between them, cap low, but presence suddenly commanding. That's enough, he says, voice quiet but resonant with authority. Zek tries to pull away, irritation flashing across his face. Back off, old man. This is content. Is it now? Curtis asks, maintaining his grip despite Zek's struggling. And what exactly is the content here? Assaulting veterans? Phoenix keeps filming, capturing this new development with professional opportunism. Octavia steps closer, sensing potential problems, but equally aware of the views this confrontation might generate. He's not a real vet, Zek insists, playing to the cameras. Just another fraud. Curtis looks directly into Phoenix's camera and removes his sunglasses with his free hand. The crowd's reaction is immediate, gasps of recognition spreading outward like ripples in water. This isn't Curtis Bell. This is Denzel Washington. You want content? Denzel asks, voice controlled, but carrying to every recording device. Film this. He releases Zek's wrist and turns to Thorne, whose cheek still bears the reddened imprint of Zek's hand. With deliberate respect, Denzel executes a perfect military salute. After a moment of stillness, Thorne returns it with instinctive precision. Staff Sergeant Malcolm Thorne, 5th Special Forces Group, Silver Star recipient, Denzel announces, each word measured and clear. One of 8 men who survived Operation Lighthouse in 2008. The crowd murmurs, phone still recording as Denzel continues. A mission still partially classified, but I know it well. I portrayed their commanding officer in a film that never released. The Pentagon wouldn't clear it. But I spent 6 months with Sergeant Thorne and his unit learning their story. Denzel kneels to help Thorne gather his scattered journal pages. On one, the photograph clearly shows a younger Thorne with Denzel and several soldiers in Afghanistan. This man saved 17 civilians and 3 fellow soldiers when their helicopter crashed behind enemy lines. Denzel continues, rising to his feet. He carried his wounded captain 12 miles to extraction while being hunted by hostiles. Turning to face Zek and the cameras directly, his expression hardening. You just assaulted an American hero for views. How does that content taste now? The silence that follows is complete, broken only by the ambient sounds of the city continuing its business beyond this frozen moment. Phones remain raised, but their owners stand motionless, witnessing rather than merely recording. Thorne, journal now secured in his hands, studies Denzel's face with quiet intensity. Been a long time, sir. Too long, Sergeant, Denzel replies, the formality softening to genuine respect. I've been looking for you. Zek, suddenly aware that the narrative has shifted beyond his control, attempts to reclaim his audience. I had no way of knowing. That's exactly the point, Denzel interrupts, not bothering to look at him. You didn't know, so you assumed. You didn't ask, so you invented. You wanted content more than truth. He places a gentle hand on Thorne's shoulder. Let's get you somewhere quieter. We have a lot to discuss. As they turn to leave, Phoenix lowers his camera, the red recording light still blinking. Wait, Mr. Washington, can we get a statement? Denzel pauses, looking back at the trio of content creators now scrambling to reposition themselves within a story that has outgrown their framing. You have your statement, he says simply. It's all there on film. Use it wisely. The crowd parts as Denzel guides Thorne through, a protective arm still around the older man's shoulders. They move toward a black SUV, waiting at the curb, leaving Zek and his team surrounded by spectators whose phones have now turned to capture their reactions. Octavia furiously types on her phone, attempting damage control even as the video uploads in real time across platforms. This is going viral, but not how we planned. Zek stares after the departing figures, his carefully constructed persona crumbling under the weight of genuine consequence. For perhaps the first time, he faces an audience he cannot manipulate, a narrative he cannot edit. On the ground where Thorne had knelt, a single page remains, a newspaper clipping with the headline partially visible. Operation Lighthouse, the mission that never officially happened. Behind it, in Thorne's precise handwriting, a question. Who will remember when we're gone? Phoenix picks it up, camera forgotten at his side. What have we done? Nearby, a man who had been recording the entire incident looks at his phone screen, then at the departing SUV. He presses share, and the first domino falls. Have you ever encountered someone whose quiet dignity made you question your own judgments? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to hear the next chapter in this unfolding story of honor, recognition, and redemption. The video spreads across platforms faster than any of Zek's previous stunts. Within an hour, Wham Stand with Thorne and Our Denzel Salute are trending topics. Within 2, news outlets begin picking up the story. By evening, Zek watches his follower count plummet in real time as sponsors send frantic emails severing ties with his brand. Inside Denzel's hotel suite at the Dome, Beverly Wilshire, Malcolm Thorne sits uncomfortably on the edge of a plush armchair, looking out of place among luxurious furnishings. His weathered hands rest on his journal, knuckles white with tension, despite the apparent safety of these surroundings. When was the last time you had a proper meal, Sergeant? Denzel asks, setting down a tray of room service food. Simple fare, nothing ostentatious. Steak, potatoes, green beans. Yesterday. Shelter on 6th serves dinner at 5, Thorne replies, straightforward and factual. No self-pity, no embellishment. Denzel nods, accepting the answer at face value. And before that? Military taught me how to function on minimal resources. Thorne's eyes remain fixed on the journal rather than the steaming food. I get by. That's not what I asked. The gentle challenge hangs in the air between them. After a moment, Thorne's shoulders relax slightly. Been 3 years since I had regular meals. Fire took my apartment building in 2022. Insurance company went bankrupt the same month. Had savings, but medical bills ate through them quick after the smoke damage to my lungs. He gestures to the food with a nod of acknowledgement before continuing. VA backlog put me on an 18-month waiting list for housing assistance. By month 6, I was sleeping in my car. By month 9, car got towed with everything in it. Been in the system ever since. Denzel listens without interruption, his expression revealing neither pity nor judgment, just focused attention. When Thorne finishes, he pushes the tray closer. Eat first. Then we talk about why I've been looking for you. Across town, in a luxury apartment overlooking the downtown skyline, Zek paces frantically, phone pressed to his ear. The sleek minimalist space, all white furniture and statement art, feels suddenly sterile rather than sophisticated. What do you mean you're pulling the campaign? The contract is signed. His voice rises, desperation evident beneath the anger. One video getting misinterpreted doesn't change our agreement. Phoenix and Octavia sit on opposite ends of a sectional sofa, both intensely focused on their devices. Digital damage control in full swing. Every major account is reposting it, Phoenix reports, scrolling through an endless feed of reshares. It's up to 15 million views. Comments are brutal. Octavia looks up from her laptop. Sneaker Drop just emailed. They're terminating our partnership, effective immediately. That's 3 sponsors down in the last hour. Zek ends his call with a curse, throwing his phone onto the sofa. This is ridiculous. How was I supposed to know he was some war hero? He looks homeless. He is homeless, Octavia points out, her tone professional rather than accusatory. That's kind of the whole problem with how this is playing out. Phoenix turns his phone screen toward them. People are digging up our old videos now. The one with the delivery driver, the old lady at the grocery store, they're all getting reposted with Noprish Zek victims. Zek drops onto the sofa, running hands through his carefully styled hair. This will blow over. Everything blows over online. Next week there'll be some new outrage. Not sure about that, Phoenix says, still scrolling. Someone identified the operation Washington mentioned? Apparently it's a big deal in military circles. Special Forces rescue mission, partially declassified in 2020. Thorne's name is in the official commendation. The television on the wall suddenly lights up with breaking news. A reporter standing in Pershing Square, the same bench where Thorne had sat visible in the background. In a shocking confrontation captured on video today, actor Denzel Washington intervened when a social media personality physically assaulted a homeless veteran during what was described as a prank for online content. The veteran has since been identified as Staff Sergeant Malcolm Thorne, a decorated Special Forces soldier who received the Silver Star for heroism during Operation Lighthouse in Afghanistan. The screen splits to show clips from the viral video, Zek's face clearly visible as he taunts and then strikes Thorne. Major brands including Sneaker Drop, Vital Energy Drinks, and Clout Gear have announced they are terminating sponsorship agreements with content creator Ezekiel Rivers, known online as Zek, whose social media accounts have lost over 200,000 followers in the hours since the incident. Octavia mutes the television. We need a strategy, an apology video, maybe a donation to veterans' causes, something to show remorse. Zek stares at the muted screen, watching his own face frozen in the moment before everything changed. I didn't know? That's not good enough anymore, Phoenix says quietly. Not for this. Back at the hotel, Thorne methodically finishes his meal, each bite measured and deliberate. Military precision in this simple act. When he sets down his fork, he looks directly at Denzel for the first time since they arrived. Why were you watching me? 3 days, same cafe. Denzel pours 2 glasses of water before taking the chair opposite Thorne. I recognized you from the research. The film never happened, but I never forgot your story. He hesitates, fingers tapping lightly against his glass. And your captain made me promise something before they canceled production. Thorne's expression shifts subtly, a tightening around the eyes. Emerson spoke to you? He did, and I think I know where his son is. The revelation lands with visible impact. Thorne's hand moves instinctively to his journal, fingers tracing its worn edges. How much did Emerson tell you about what happened that night? Enough to understand why you've been searching for his son, Denzel replies. Not enough to understand why you're living on the streets when you could have accessed veteran benefits years ago. Thorne's weathered face reveals nothing, but his eyes drop to the journal. Some debts can't be paid, from comfortable surroundings. Self-imposed penance isn't what Emerson would have wanted for you. You didn't know him like I did. Denzel reaches into his pocket and produces a military challenge coin, brass with faded enamel, identical to one visible in Thorne's scattered journal photos from earlier that day. Captain Emerson gave me this during filming. Said if I ever found you, to tell you the lighthouse still stands. Thorne's stoic demeanor finally cracks. His hand trembles as he takes the coin, turning it over to reveal an engraved lighthouse surrounded by Arabic script. 15 years carrying his last words, Thorne whispers, voice rough with emotion. Never thought they'd matter anymore. Denzel's phone lights up with notifications, the screen showing the viral video now approaching 10 million views. Headlines flash past. Washington defends homeless veteran. Social media star under fire for veteran assault. Operation Lighthouse hero identified. What happens now? Thorne asks, suddenly looking every year of his age. Now, Denzel says, we fulfill a promise I made to a dying man, and maybe fix a few things along the way. His phone rings, a studio executive according to the display. Denzel silences it without answering. Your priority right now should be a hot shower and clean clothes. Tomorrow, we find Emerson's son. Thorne nods, pocketing the challenge coin with careful reverence. As he rises to leave the room, he pauses at the door. There's something about Operation Lighthouse you should know. Something not in any report. He opens his journal to a sealed envelope marked, classified, eyes only, Emerson's son. This is why I've been searching. This is what really happened that night. Morning brings a media frenzy outside the Beverly Wilshire. Reporters cluster near the entrance, cameras ready, alerted by hotel staff about their famous guest and his unusual companion. Inside, Thorne emerges from the guest bedroom, wearing clothes Denzel had ordered sent up. Simple but dignified attire that fits his frame better than the worn garments from yesterday. His beard has been trimmed, his hair neatly combed. The transformation is subtle but profound. First decent night's sleep in how long? Denzel asks, scrolling through messages on his phone. Can't remember, Thorne admits, adjusting the unfamiliar weight of the new jacket. Keep expecting to hear sirens or shouting. Well, we've got plenty of shouting waiting downstairs. Press caught wind of where we're staying. Thorne's expression hardens. I'm not doing interviews. Wouldn't ask you to, Denzel assures him. Back exit's been arranged. Car will take us directly to Fort Irwin. Lieutenant Colonel Emerson is expecting us at noon. The mention of Emerson's son brings Thorne to full alert. He agreed to meet. One call to the Pentagon was all it took. Mentioned your name and Operation Lighthouse. He's been searching for you too, apparently. Thorne's hand moves, instinctively to his journal, tucked securely inside his new jacket. All this time, I thought he wouldn't want to know. Thought maybe it was better that way. Truth has a way of finding its audience, Sergeant, one way or another. Denzel's phone buzzes with an incoming video call, his publicist, based on his expression. I need to take this. Car will be ready in 20 minutes. As Denzel steps away to answer, Thorne moves to the window, carefully adjusting the curtain to peer down at the gathered media. His reflection in the glass shows a man caught between worlds, the new clothes and groomed appearance at odds with the wariness in his eyes. On a television mounted on the wall, muted news coverage shows Zek entering a veterans organization headquarters, expression solemn as cameras flash around him. The caption reads, Social media star announces $50,000 donation to veterans following controversy. Thorne watches without comment, only the slight tightening of his jaw indicating any reaction. Across the suite, Denzel concludes his call. Studio wants to revive the Operation Lighthouse project. Seems there's renewed interest in the story. There's always interest in stories about war, Thorne observes, letting the curtain fall back into place. Less interest in the warriors once they come home. Maybe we can change that. The drive to Fort Irwin takes them through the sprawling expanse of Southern California, urban landscape gradually giving way to desert terrain. Thorne watches the transition in silence, one hand resting protectively over his journal the entire journey. When was the last time you were on a military base? Denzel asks as the car approaches the security checkpoint. 5 years ago, VA hospital at Camp Pendleton. After that, started using civilian clinics. Easier to blend in. Why hide it all? Thorne's gaze remains fixed on the approaching gates. Some ghosts are easier to carry when no one knows your name. The security process is expedited. Denzel's fame and their expected arrival smoothing what could have been a complicated entry. As they drive deeper into the base, Thorne's posture gradually changes, back straightening, shoulders squaring, muscle memory responding to the familiar environment. They park outside a nondescript administrative building. Before they can exit the vehicle, the front door opens, and Lieutenant Colonel James Emerson Jr. emerges. At 42, he is the spitting image of his father. Same confident stance, same analytical gaze. His dress uniform bears the insignia of his rank and multiple combat decorations. Thorne freezes at the sight of him. He looks just like him. Captain Emerson was the same age you are now when he died, Denzel observes quietly. His son has lived an entire lifetime since then. Thorne's hand moves to the challenge coin in his pocket, fingers closing around it like a talisman. I'm not sure I can do this. 15 years, Sergeant. Time to complete the mission. The simple framing, a mission rather than an emotional reckoning, seems to steady Thorne. He nods once decisively and opens the car door. Lieutenant Colonel Emerson watches their approach with military stillness. Only his eyes reveal emotion, intense focus as Thorne draws nearer, recognition and something deeper flickering across his features. Sergeant Thorne, he says when they reach him, voice controlled but not cold. My father spoke of you often. Thorne stands at attention, military bearing returning instinctively. For a moment, he is again the soldier he once was, disciplined and present. Your father was the finest officer I ever served under, sir. Please, inside. Emerson gestures toward the door. We've arranged a private room. The interior is standard military efficiency. Functional furniture, neutral colors, nothing wasted on aesthetics. An American flag stands in one corner, unit citations framed on walls otherwise bare of decoration. Emerson leads them to a conference room where coffee and water have been set out. Once the door closes behind them, the formality in his demeanor softens slightly. My father said you were the bravest man he ever knew, he begins, voice tight with emotion. Said if it weren't for you, none of them would have made it out. Thorne shakes his head, a quick, sharp movement. Your father saved us all. The report was wrong. He reaches inside his jacket and removes the sealed envelope from his journal. The paper has yellowed with age, the handwriting on the front faded but legible. Classified, eyes only, Emerson's son. He wrote this the night he died, made me swear I'd deliver it personally, no matter how long it took. Emerson stares at the envelope, recognition dawning in his expression. His handwriting. Last thing he did before the morphine took him under. The younger Emerson accepts the envelope with reverent hands, turning it over once before looking back at Thorne. 15 years. Couldn't trust it to anyone else. Couldn't risk it getting lost in the system. But why not contact me directly? I've been at this base for 3 years. Before that, Pentagon. Thorne's gaze drops to the envelope. Read it first, then you'll understand. Denzel moves toward the door. I'll give you privacy. No, Thorne says quickly. Stay. You're part of this now. Emerson breaks the seal carefully, preserving the envelope as he extracts several handwritten pages. The paper is medical stationery from the field hospital. Lines of text cramped but legible, despite having been written by a dying man. The room falls silent as Emerson begins to read. His expression changes gradually, confusion giving way to understanding, then shock, and finally a complex mixture of grief and pride. When he finishes, he looks up at Thorne with new awareness. All this time, you let them believe it was your decision to go back. It was better that way. For whom? Emerson demands, voice rising slightly. Not for you. The report states you disobeyed direct orders, risked the entire unit on an unauthorized rescue attempt. That's what your father wanted them to believe. Emerson holds up the letter. He writes here that it was his decision, that when the intelligence came in about the civilian hostages, he ordered the deviation from mission parameters, that he explicitly commanded you to lead the rescue while he secured the primary objective. And I followed those orders, Thorne confirms, just as he followed his conscience. But the official record blames you for the mission complications, states that disciplinary action was only suspended because of the outcome. Thorne's expression remains impassive. Records say what they need to say. This could have cleared your name years ago, changed your discharge status, guaranteed your benefits. At what cost? Thorne asks quietly. Your father made a choice that saved 17 lives, including 3 children. He knowingly violated direct orders from higher command. In doing so, he exposed himself to enemy fire that ultimately killed him. Understanding dawns on Emerson's face. If this letter had gone public, his reputation, his medals, his legacy would all have been questioned, Thorne finishes, possibly revoked posthumously, his pension to your mother reduced or eliminated. The political fallout would have touched everyone involved in Operation Lighthouse. Emerson looks down at the letter again. He knew he was dying when he wrote this. Yes. And his last act was to ensure his choice protected everyone but himself. He was that kind of leader, Thorne says simply. And you've been carrying this burden for 15 years, Emerson continues, voice thick with emotion. Living on the streets rather than risk exposure by applying for the benefits you deserved. Thorne doesn't answer directly. Instead, he places the challenge coin on the table between them. He gave me this the night before the operation, said it was his lucky charm, said to keep it until the mission was complete. Emerson stares at the coin, recognition flashing across his features. I have the matching one. He sent it home in his last care package. The lighthouse still stands, Thorne says quietly. That's what Mr. Washington was told to tell me if he ever found me. Your father's code. It means the light still shines, still guides others home, even after the keeper is gone. Denzel, who has remained silent throughout the exchange, finally speaks. Captain Emerson knew what he was doing when he gave me that message 15 years ago. He was playing the long game, ensuring his truth would eventually find its way home. Emerson looks between the two men, the full weight of the situation settling upon him. You've been homeless, struggling, letting your reputation remain tarnished, all to protect my father's legacy. I made him a promise, Thorne says simply. Deliver his words to you, personally. Nothing else mattered. Everything else mattered, Emerson counters, rising to his feet. Your health, your dignity, your future. He wouldn't have wanted this sacrifice. It wasn't his choice to make. It was mine. The simple statement hangs in the air between them, a testament to a code of honor that transcends official records and public recognition. Emerson's military discipline cracks. He steps forward and embraces Thorne, the gesture awkward but genuine. Thank you for bringing my father's words home. Thorne remains stiff for a moment before returning the embrace with equal sincerity. When they separate, both men's eyes are bright with unshed tears. What will you do with the letter? Thorne asks. Emerson looks down at the pages in his hand. Honor his truth privately. Continue his legacy publicly. He meets Thorne's gaze directly. And ensure you never spend another night on the streets. I don't need charity. This isn't charity, Sergeant. This is long overdue justice. Meanwhile, the video of the confrontation in Pershing Square continues its digital journey, spawning news segments, opinion pieces, and countless comments across platforms. Veteran organizations issue statements, politicians make proclamations, and Zek's carefully constructed online persona crumbles under sustained scrutiny. His apology video, posted that evening, is immediately dissected for authenticity. The donation to veterans' causes is labeled performative by many. His past content undergoes collective re-examination, previous pranks now viewed through a lens of exploitation rather than entertainment. In his luxury apartment, Zek watches his social empire collapse in real time. Follower counts dropping, comments turning hostile, brand deals vanishing one by one. Phoenix enters without knocking, phone in hand. It's getting worse. Washington and Thorne just left Fort Irwin. Military sources say Thorne met with Captain Emerson's son. And, Zek asks, not looking away from his own analytics dashboard. Pentagon's involved now. They're issuing a statement about Operation Lighthouse tomorrow. Apparently there's more to the story than anyone knew. Zek finally turns, expression haunted by the consequences unfolding around him. Can we get ahead of this somehow? I don't think so, Phoenix admits. This is bigger than social media now. It's about something real. The word hangs between them. Real. A concept their content has danced around but rarely embraced. Reality without filters, without edits, without the safety net of performative authenticity. As evening falls, Denzel and Thorne return to the Beverly Wilshire, slipping through a service entrance to avoid the press still camped outside. In the suite, Denzel pours 2 drinks, offering one to Thorne. Mission complete, Sergeant. Letter delivered, promise kept. Thorne accepts the glass but doesn't drink. Not quite complete. What else is there? The boys from the unit, the other survivors. I should find them, let them know the truth. Denzel studies him for a moment before retrieving his phone. Lieutenant Colonel Emerson anticipated that. He's already located them. 3 in California, 1 in Arizona, 2 in Texas. He's arranging transport for a reunion tomorrow. Thorne's composure wavers momentarily. All this time, I thought I was carrying this alone. That's the thing about lighthouses, Sergeant. They work best when they're part of a network. Thorne finally takes a sip of his drink, allowing himself the smallest smile. 15 years of searching, and it ends because some kid wanted internet fame. The universe works in strange ways, Denzel agrees. Speaking of which, my phone hasn't stopped buzzing since we left the base. Every major network wants interviews. Pentagon Public Affairs is coordinating with my publicist on a statement. I told you, I'm not doing interviews. Not asking you to. But there's an opportunity here, if you're willing to consider it. Thorne raises an eyebrow in silent question. The story of Operation Lighthouse deserves to be told, Denzel explains. Not for entertainment, but for recognition. For all the veterans who come home to find themselves invisible. And who would tell this story? We would, on our terms. No Hollywood embellishments, no exploitation. Just truth. Thorne considers this, turning the now empty glass in his hands. And the kid who started all this? What happens to him? That depends partly on you. Press is calling for criminal charges. Assault on a veteran carries enhanced penalties in California. No, Thorne says decisively. No charges. He's young, stupid, product of a culture that rewards the wrong things. But he's not evil. That's generous, considering. I've seen evil up close, Mr. Washington. That boy isn't it. He needs course correction, not destruction. Denzel nods slowly, respecting the assessment. What would you suggest instead? Thorne is silent for a long moment, considering. When he speaks, his voice carries the weight of a man who has thought deeply about redemption. Have him work with veterans, not for show, not for cameras, real work. Let him see what service looks like up close. Let him learn what sacrifice actually means. I'll make some calls, Denzel promises. There are programs that might accommodate that arrangement in lieu of charges. Thorne sets down his glass and moves to the window, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline, now illuminated against the darkening sky. The city that had ignored him for years now buzzes with his story. His name suddenly relevant in conversations happening across digital and physical spaces. All those nights on that bench, he says quietly. Writing in that journal, keeping the promise, sometimes wondered if I'd imagined the importance of it all, if anyone would care about an old soldier's last words. People care more than you think, Denzel tells him. They just need reminding sometimes. Thorne's phone, a new model provided by Denzel's assistant, chimes. With an incoming message, he checks it with the awkwardness of someone unaccustomed to modern technology. It's from Lieutenant Colonel Emerson, he says, surprise evident in his tone. He's accessed my military records. Benefits have been reinstated, backdated 3 years, medical coverage effective immediately. As he's processing this information, another chime follows. Veterans Affairs Housing Coordinator. I've been moved to priority placement. Apartment available next week. The rapid reversal of fortune, from invisible to prioritized in the span of 24 hours, seems to overwhelm Thorne momentarily. He sinks into a chair, phone still clutched in his hand. All because someone filmed me being humiliated, he observes with bitter irony. No, Denzel corrects gently. All because you kept your promise, even when it cost you everything. The world just finally noticed. Thorne's phone chimes again. This time, his expression changes completely as he reads the message. The controlled demeanor that has defined him throughout this ordeal cracks, genuine shock registering in his features. What is it? Denzel asks, concerned. Thorne looks up, eyes wide with disbelief. Pentagon statement just went public. They're updating the official record of Operation Lighthouse. Full recognition of Captain Emerson's actions, and he stops, seemingly unable to continue. And, Denzel prompts, they're awarding me the Distinguished Service Cross, ceremony next month at Arlington. President will present it personally. The revelation lands with seismic impact, a validation 15 years in the making. Thorne stares at the phone, the screen illuminating a face transformed by the simple power of recognition. I never wanted medals, he says softly. Just wanted to keep my word. Sometimes, Denzel replies, the world gives you what you deserve, not what you ask for. Outside the hotel, the media vigil continues, cameras pointed at entrances, reporters ready to capture the next development in a story that has captivated the nation. Inside, two men from different worlds find common ground in understanding the true weight of promises kept against impossible odds. Thorne sets down the phone and retrieves his journal from his jacket pocket. He opens it to a fresh page and makes a single entry. Day 1, mission complete. Have you ever witnessed someone receive the recognition they deserved after years of being overlooked? How did it change your perspective on quiet heroism? Share your thoughts below and subscribe to follow the conclusion of Sergeant Thorne's journey from invisibility to honor. 3 days later, in a private room at the Veterans Affairs Hospital in West Los Angeles, Lieutenant Colonel James Emerson Jr. paces nervously. His dress uniform is immaculate, medals precisely arranged, the living image of his father's legacy. Outside the door, voices murmur as hospital staff prepare for the arrival of their unusual guests. A doctor enters briefly to check monitoring equipment, nodding respectfully to Emerson before departing. The door opens again. Malcolm Thorne enters first, stopping abruptly at the sight of the younger Emerson. Despite his new clothes and recently trimmed appearance, he seems momentarily disoriented by the clinical environment. Denzel Washington follows, gently guiding the veteran forward with a hand on his shoulder. "Lieutenant Colonel," Denzel greets with a nod. "Mr. Washington, Sergeant Thorne, thank you for coming." Emerson's voice carries the controlled emotion of a military officer maintaining composure under pressure. "He's ready to see you." He gestures toward a connecting door leading to a private patient room. Thorne hesitates, looking to Denzel for confirmation. "This is your moment, Sergeant," Denzel says quietly. 15 years in the making. Thorne squares his shoulders, military bearing returning as he approaches the door. When Emerson opens it, the scene inside freezes him in place. In the hospital bed, attached to various monitors but sitting upright, is an elderly man in his late 80s. His frame is thin, weakened by age and illness, but his eyes remain sharp with intelligence. On the blanket covering his lap rests a familiar challenge coin, the twin to the one Thorne has carried for 15 years. "Hello, Malcolm," the man says, voice raspy but clear. "Been a long time." Thorne's composure breaks. "Captain Emerson? But you died. I watched you die." The elder Emerson smiles weakly. "Nearly did. Multiple times. But it seems I'm more stubborn than the doctors expected." The revelation strikes Thorne like a physical blow. He grips the doorframe for support. Decades of guilt and purpose suddenly thrown into question. How? The field hospital in Kandahar, your wounds, the letter. "Come sit," Captain William Emerson gestures to a chair beside his bed. "It's a long story, and I don't have the strength I once did." Thorne moves forward as if in a trance, lowering himself into the chair while never taking his eyes off his former commanding officer. Denzel and the younger Emerson remain near the door, silent witnesses to this unexpected reunion. "They pronounced me dead twice that night," Captain Emerson explains, each word measured and deliberate. "Once in the field, once in surgery. The second time, they managed to bring me back, but the prognosis was grim. Multiple organ failure, extensive blood loss, infection setting in." He lifts the challenge coin from his lap, turning it over in gnarled fingers. "They evacuated me to Germany while still technically deceased according to initial reports. By the time they realized their error, new orders had come down from high command. Operation Lighthouse was being scrubbed from official records. Too many diplomatic complications." Thorne listens with increasing disbelief. "But the letter. You wrote it. I delivered it to your son." "I did write it, believing I wouldn't survive the night. Everything in it is true," Captain Emerson confirms. "When I unexpectedly stabilized, military intelligence saw an opportunity. A ghost officer could be useful for certain sensitive operations. My death became official policy." "For 15 years? Thorne's voice rises slightly, the first hint of anger breaking through his shock. "You let your son believe you were dead for 15 years? "No," the younger Emerson interjects, moving closer to his father's bedside. "I knew he was alive. Small circle, highest clearance. Mother knew too, though she passed in 2015. Captain Emerson reaches for his son's hand. James has been my handler since he joined military intelligence in 2010. The arrangement protected everyone involved in Lighthouse while allowing me to continue serving, albeit in different capacities. But why maintain the deception after the operation was declassified in 2020? Denzel asks, breaking his silence. By then, William Emerson had been dead for over a decade, the younger Emerson explains. Resurrecting him would have raised too many questions about what he'd been doing in the interim. Questions neither the military nor certain allied governments wanted to answer. Thorne stands abruptly, emotion finally breaking through his controlled exterior. I lived on the streets for 3 years. I gave up everything to keep my promise to deliver your letter. I thought I was honoring a dead man's last wish. You were, Captain Emerson says firmly. When I wrote that letter, I was dying. The words, the intent, the need for truth, all genuine. That I survived doesn't diminish what you sacrificed to fulfill that promise. He looks to his son. When the Pentagon finally agreed to declassify parts of Lighthouse, I began pushing to find Sergeant Thorne. Intelligence tracked him to Los Angeles 2 years ago, but lost him when he went fully off-grid. We had a whole operation plan to make contact, the younger Emerson adds. Then yesterday, I get a call that Denzel Washington is bringing him to Fort Irwin, accompanied by footage of him being assaulted that's gone viral across the internet. Captain Emerson's weathered face shows a flash of anger. Saw that video, wanted to court-martial that punk kid myself. Despite everything, Thorne laughs, a short, surprised sound that seems to startle even him. Still the same Captain Emerson. Older, not necessarily wiser. The captain gestures to the monitoring equipment surrounding him. Cancer. Terminal this time. No miraculous recoveries in the forecast. Doctors give me weeks, maybe a month. The revelation lands heavily in the room. Thorne sinks back into his chair, the emotional whiplash of the past few days evident in his expression. So, you found me just in time, he says quietly. Or you found me, Captain Emerson counters. Either way, there's symmetry to it, completing the circle. Denzel steps forward, addressing both veterans. I came to Los Angeles to research another film entirely. Recognized Sergeant Thorne. By chance. Some might call that coincidence. No such thing in my experience, Captain Emerson responds. Just threads we can't always see connecting events. He turns his attention back to Thorne, expression becoming serious. The letter you carried all these years. You never read it. It isn't a question, but Thorne answers anyway. No, it wasn't addressed to me. Honorable to the end, Captain Emerson says with approval. But there's something you should know about its contents. He nods to his son, who retrieves a folder from a nearby table. The Pentagon statement released yesterday tells part of the truth. It acknowledges my decision to divert from mission parameters, clears your record completely. I've seen it, Thorne confirms. What it doesn't mention is the recommendation I included in that letter. The captain accepts the folder from his son and removes a document bearing official Pentagon letterhead. A recommendation that Staff Sergeant Malcolm Thorne receive the Medal of Honor for actions above and beyond the call of duty. Thorne stares at the document, momentarily speechless. That's not necessary. The Distinguished Service Cross is more than enough recognition. It's not about recognition, Captain Emerson insists. It's about truth. After you carried me to extraction, you went back for the others. Alone. Against direct orders from the field commander who outranked me once I was incapacitated. He hands the document to Thorne. You retrieved 3 wounded soldiers and 4 civilians from territory actively being bombed by our own aircraft due to communications failure. You used your body as a shield when enemy fire found your position. You carried 2 children on your back across 2 miles of open terrain under sniper fire. Thorne looks down at the paper, uncomfortable with the recitation of actions he's spent years trying to forget. Anyone would have done the same. No, Captain Emerson says firmly. They wouldn't have. That's precisely the point. The younger Emerson steps forward. The recommendation has been approved. Ceremony in 2 weeks at the White House. They're expediting everything once they learned of my father's condition. Denzel watches Thorne carefully, noting the veteran's complex reaction to news that would thrill most recipients. You don't seem happy about this. The medal isn't the point, Thorne says, echoing the captain's earlier words. Never was. Then what is? Denzel asks. Thorne considers the question, looking between the 3 men watching him. Keeping faith, With them, with myself, fulfilling the promise. Captain Emerson nods in understanding. The mission comes first. Always has with you. And now it's complete, Thorne acknowledges. Not quite, the captain counters, reaching for a small box on his bedside table. One last element. He opens the box to reveal a set of military dog tags. Found these in Germany when they were processing my effects after the death. Thought you might. Want them back. Thorne accepts the tags with visible emotion, the metal warm from the captain's hand. His own name stares back at him, along with his service number and blood type, a tangible connection to the identity he had set aside for so long. Welcome home, Sergeant, Captain Emerson says softly. 2 weeks later, the East Room of the White House is filled with military officials, politicians, and select media. The story of Operation Lighthouse and its aftermath has become a national conversation, expanding beyond Thorne's viral moment to encompass broader issues of veteran care and recognition. Thorne stands at rigid attention, dressed in a new uniform bearing the insignia of his former rank and unit. Beside him, Lieutenant Colonel James Emerson represents his father, who watches the ceremony via secure video link from his hospital room. The president approaches with the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military decoration. As cameras capture the moment for posterity, Thorne's expression remains stoic, eyes fixed on a point beyond the immediate spectacle. Staff Sergeant Malcolm Thorne, the president begins, voice carrying throughout the hushed room. Your extraordinary heroism and selflessness exemplify the highest traditions of military service. Your actions during Operation Lighthouse saved 20 lives at great personal risk. Your subsequent dedication to honoring your fallen commander's legacy demonstrates character beyond measure. The medal is placed around Thorne's neck, its weight both physical and symbolic. The United States of America thanks you for your service and sacrifices, both on and off the battlefield. The applause is thunderous, dignitaries and military personnel rising in unified respect. Thorne maintains his composure throughout, accepting congratulations with dignified reserve as the ceremony concludes. Later, in a quieter moment away from cameras, Thorne speaks with Captain Emerson via secure video call, the medal still around his neck. How does it feel? The captain asks from his hospital bed, looking frailer than he had 2 weeks prior. Heavy, Thorne admits. They all are, Captain Emerson agrees, but you carry it better than most. Lieutenant Colonel Emerson joins them, carrying documents bearing Pentagon seals. Housing arrangements are finalized. Apartment in Westwood, close to VA facilities. Transportation arranged for whenever you're ready. Thorne nods in acknowledgement, fingers unconsciously touching the medal. And the others from the unit? Arriving in Los Angeles tomorrow. Everyone's looking forward to seeing you. Denzel enters with his own update. Just spoke with the prosecutor's office. They've agreed to the alternative arrangement for Rivers. Thorne raises an eyebrow in question. 2 years community service at the West LA Veterans Center. 50 hours per week, no social media, no cameras. Complete digital detox while learning what actual service looks like. His idea or yours? Thorne asks. His, surprisingly, said he wanted to understand what he'd been mocking. Thorne considers this information. People can surprise you. Speaking of surprises, Lieutenant Colonel Emerson interjects, there's one more thing we need to discuss. He lays the documents on the table between them. The president was quite moved by your story, particularly the homelessness aspect. He's appointed a special committee to address veteran housing and streamline access to benefits. They want you to serve as special advisor. Thorne looks genuinely startled for the first time since the White House ceremony. I'm not a politician. Exactly why they want you, Denzel points out. Someone who's lived the reality, not just studied it. From the video screen, Captain Emerson watches his former sergeant process this latest development. Consider it your next mission, Malcolm, one worthy of your particular skills. 3 months later, the Emerson Thorne Veterans Center opens its doors in East Los Angeles. The facility, funded through a combination of government grants, private donations, and proceeds from a foundation established in Thorne's name, offers comprehensive services for homeless veterans, housing assistance, mental health support, job training, and community reintegration programs. The grand opening draws considerable media attention, cameras capturing Thorne cutting the ribbon with steady hands. Now clean-shaven and properly attired, He bears little resemblance to the homeless veteran who had sat on a park bench in Pershing Square just months earlier. In the center's courtyard, a small lighthouse statue stands as a memorial to Operation Lighthouse and all forgotten veterans. The structure, crafted from metal salvaged from military vehicles, illuminates each evening, a beacon visible from surrounding streets. Beside it grows a garden where local children and veterans work together, planting flowers and vegetables in neat rows. A therapeutic program that serves multiple communities simultaneously, bridging divides between civilians and those who served. Captain William Emerson did not live to see the center's opening. He passed away 2 days after watching his former sergeant receive the Medal of Honor, his mission complete. At his request, his ashes were scattered at the Lighthouse Memorial during a private ceremony attended only by his son and Thorne. As evening falls on opening day, most dignitaries and media have departed, leaving the center to begin its actual work away from public scrutiny. Thorne sits on a bench in the garden, watching as a young female veteran carefully transplants seedlings into freshly turned soil. She wears the uniform of recent conflicts, not military fatigues, but the invisible markers of PTSD, hypervigilance evident in how she positions herself with clear sightlines to all approaches. Her hands tremble slightly as she works, but the repetitive nature of the task seems to calm her gradually. First time, gardening? Thorne asks, keeping his voice gentle and non-intrusive. She nods without looking up. Never saw the point before. Nothing grew in Afghanistan except trouble. Different soil here, Thorne observes. Different possibilities. The young veteran finally looks at him, recognition dawning in her expression. You're him, the guy from the video, the Medal of Honor recipient. Just, Malcolm is fine. She studies him with the assessing gaze of someone accustomed to evaluating threats. They say you lived on the streets for years even though you could have had benefits. That true? Yes. Why? Thorne considers the question, understanding its importance to someone struggling with her own transition. Thought I needed to punish myself for surviving. Thought isolation was what I deserved. And now? Now I understand the hardest battle is the one where you feel invisible, Thorne tells her. But someone always sees you, even when you don't see yourself. The simple truth seems to resonate. She returns to her planting, movements more deliberate now, less frantic. Does it get easier, civilian life? Different, not easier, Thorne answers honestly. But possible, especially when you stop trying to walk the path alone. He reaches into his pocket and removes something that catches the fading light. A lighthouse pin, small but intricately detailed. We give these to everyone who comes through the center. Reminder that even in the darkest waters, there's always guidance home if you're willing to look for it. The young veteran accepts the pin, turning it over in soil-stained fingers. Heard you're advising the president now. Big change from a park bench. The uniform changes. The mission doesn't, Thorne says simply. Serve where you're needed most. Inside the center, through large windows overlooking the garden, Denzel observes this quiet interaction while speaking with Lieutenant Colonel Emerson. Behind them, walls display photographs of formerly homeless veterans now employed or volunteering, each with their own story of being seen when society looked away. He's good at this, Denzel notes, connecting with them in ways counselors can't. He speaks their language, Emerson agrees. Authenticity can't be manufactured or trained. Their attention shifts to a television mounted on a nearby wall, where a local news report plays silently. The footage shows Ezekiel Rivers, no longer styled as Zek, working alongside veterans to unload supplies at the center's loading dock. His designer clothes replaced by simple work attire, his expression focused rather than performative. How's he adapting to his community service? Denzel asks. Rough start, Emerson admits. First week, he kept asking when cameras would be allowed. By week 3, he stopped asking, started listening instead. The report continues, showing Rivers sitting in a circle with veterans during what appears to be a group therapy session. His head is bowed, attention fully engaged with the speaker across from him. Thorne refused to press charges, Denzel recalls. Said the kid wasn't evil, just misguided. Wise assessment, Emerson observes. Sometimes the people who hurt others the most are just looking for significance in all the wrong places. Outside, the lighthouse memorial illuminates as dusk deepens, its beam cutting through gathering shadows. Thorne and the young veteran have been joined by others, some in wheelchairs, some with service dogs, all wearing the lighthouse pin that has become the center's symbol. They work together in the garden, a community forming around shared purpose rather than shared trauma. Conversation flows more easily in the parallel activity. Veterans finding words for experiences that often defy traditional therapy approaches. Thorne moves among them, offering quiet guidance or silent companionship as needed. The medal he earned remains in a drawer at his apartment, but its meaning finds expression in how he carries himself now, with purpose restored, identity reclaimed. As night falls completely, staff begin guiding residents toward the main building for dinner. The young veteran hesitates at the threshold, looking back at the illuminated lighthouse. "Does it ever go out?" she asks Thorne. "The light? No," he answers. "That's the whole point." Inside, the center's walls display a simple plaque near the entrance. "For those who served silently, we now loudly honor your sacrifice." Below it, a photograph shows Thorne in Pershing Square, moments after Denzel's intervention. The two men standing together against a backdrop of raised phones, capturing what would become a catalyst for national change. The image, powerful in its unplanned authenticity, reminds visitors that recognition often arrives from unexpected sources. In another wing, a classroom hosts digital literacy courses for veterans reintegrating into civilian workforce. Among the instructors is Phoenix, Zek's former cameraman, now volunteering his technical skills for more constructive purposes. His blue hair remains, but his demeanor has transformed, patience replacing the cynical detachment that once defined his online persona. Elsewhere in the facility, Octavia coordinates with corporate partners on employment pipelines for program graduates, her business acumen redirected toward creating opportunities rather than monetizing humiliation. Her marketing materials emphasize dignity and capability, countering stereotypes about veteran employability. The center represents a convergence of unlikely allies united by a shared recognition that what began as exploitation revealed a deeper truth about how society often overlooks its most dedicated servants. Denzel prepares to depart, his direct involvement transitioning to ongoing foundation support as the center establishes its operational rhythm. Before leaving, he finds Thorne in his modest office, a space deliberately kept simple despite offers of more elaborate furnishings. "The studio still wants to make that film," Denzel informs him. "Operation Lighthouse, the real story this time." Thorne looks up from reviewing resident intake forms. And I told them I'd only consider it with your full involvement, as consultant, as authentic voice, as guardian of the truth. What truth are they interested in? The heroism or the abandonment afterward? Both, Denzel answers honestly. The contradiction is what makes it powerful. A nation that celebrates warriors then forgets them. A system that creates medals for valor but bureaucracy for survival. Thorne considers this, fingers unconsciously touching the lighthouse pin on his lapel. "If it helps others understand, I'll consider it. But no Hollywood endings. The struggle continues for too many." "Agreed," Denzel says. "Reality over fantasy. Always." As he turns to leave, something catches his attention. Thorne's journal open on the desk, its worn cover a stark contrast to the modern office surroundings. The visible page shows a new entry, handwritten in the same precise script. Day 107. 23 veterans housed, 6 employed, 1 recovered. "You're still counting," Denzel observes. "Different mission, same discipline," Thorne explains. "Numbers keep it real. Remind me it's about individuals, not statistics." Denzel nods in understanding. The best memorials are living ones. Outside, the lighthouse beam sweeps across the garden, where the day's work stands complete, new growth taking root in soil once barren, tended by hands that once held weapons. The light catches the young veteran as she finally steps inside, lighthouse pin gleaming briefly on her jacket. In Pershing Square, Thorne's former bench remains unoccupied this evening. Instead, a small plaque has been affixed to its back, reading simply, "Invisible no more." Beside it, someone has left a single challenge coin, identical to the one Thorne carried for 15 years. 6 months later, a small group gathers at Arlington National Cemetery. Lieutenant Colonel Emerson stands beside Thorne as Captain William Emerson's ashes are interred with full military honors. His death, finally made official in national records. The ceremony is brief but dignified, attended by surviving members of Operation Lighthouse and senior military officials, acknowledging a debt long unpaid. When the formal rituals conclude, Thorne places his Medal of Honor beside the headstone. "He earned this as much as I did," he tells the younger Emerson. "He would want you to keep it," Emerson responds. "Carry it for both of you." Thorne retrieves the medal, weighing it in his hand. Not the medal, what it represents. As they depart the cemetery, Thorne's phone buzzes with messages from the center, updates on residents, new admissions, progress reports on ongoing cases. The work continues, expanding now to additional locations and cities across the country, each facility marked by a lighthouse symbol, illuminating through darkness. Back in Los Angeles, the original Lighthouse Memorial has become something of a pilgrimage site for veterans seeking connection. Each evening, its beam cuts through city smog, visible from highways and neighborhoods often overlooked by prosperity. Beside it, the garden flourishes, tended by hands finding healing in nurturing new life. Among them works Ezekiel Rivers, his community service now voluntary rather than mandated, his understanding of value fundamentally altered by months of genuine human connection. The center's walls hold photographs documenting transformation, before and after images of veterans who arrived broken and departed whole, not cured perhaps, but reconnected to purpose and community. Their stories, told in their own words, line corridors as testimony to possibilities beyond trauma. In Thorne's office, his journal remains a daily practice, counting not days of isolation now, but steps toward integration. Each entry records not just numbers, but names, not just services provided, but dignity restored. The final page shows a simple entry. Lighthouse operational. Beam extends 20 miles on clear nights. Guides ships home daily. Mission continuous. Below it, a question posed to himself and answered. Was it worth the journey? Every step. Have you ever witnessed a moment when someone's true worth was finally recognized after being overlooked? Or experienced a time when what seemed like humiliation became the catalyst for profound change? Share your stories in the comments below. Sometimes the most important lighthouses in our lives are the people who help us find our way back to shore when we've been lost at sea.